You know, sometimes I go into things with very low expectations, and that does include the piece of entertainment that I watch. Take Call of the Night for example. I could tell that this was going to be an edgy, hypersexual show with no real substance, from a studio infamous for failing to provide good adaptations. This was clearly going to be an anime that I watched just to fill some time. I'm so glad to report that I could not have been more wrong. Call of the Night centres around our young protagonist, Yamori Ko, a middle schooler who has lost his motivation, who results in him no longer attending school, despite apparently being one of the better students. His newfound idleness means he's now plagued by insomnia, and thus he decides to sneak out one night to stretch his legs. Although he has some reservations about it, he can't help but give himself over to the freedom of the night. And who can blame him? Just look at these shots. This is a really pretty anime, far prettier than I was expecting, with these strong, vibrant colours bursting out of every frame. It's so inviting, so calming. I could instantly see why Ko would keep doing this every night. Genuinely, I was majorly impressed with how this show looks. Not just in these environmental shots, but every shot in this anime too. The direction, cinematography, and especially the lighting and colouring are phenomenal. And I love that when we occasionally do see the daytime in this series, it's so desaturated and bland, really emphasising the beauty of the night. Though it shouldn't come as a surprise that this anime is so well directed, since the director is none other than Tomoyuki Itamura, the same man who directed the Monogatari series and the case study of Vanitas. Damn, this guy must really like vampires. What also aids in showcasing the good vibe of the night is the soundtrack. I don't know what genre it would fall under, but it definitely comes under the umbrella of being a banger. It's simultaneously subtle yet engulfing, pulling you deeper into the night without you even realising it. And we even get a couple of insert songs from Creepy Nuts. That's right, the Creepy Nuts, who also endowed us with an incredible opening and ending. They even guest starred in one episode, of course hitting on everyone's favourite vampire. If you're unaware, Call of the Night and Creepy Nuts are actually intrinsically linked, with Call of the Night being named after one of their songs, the same song which ended up being the anime's ED. Honestly, this show did such a good job conveying how gorgeous the night is that it genuinely made me want to sneak out and have some fun. That is, until I looked out my window and saw reality. This anime is so bullshit. Vampires are one thing, but the night sky would never look like that in that location with all the light pollution around. It's just too far-fetched and silly. But anyway, after a little Google, Ko learns that a good way to tackle insomnia is booze, which is lucky since he just so happens to bump into one of the brightest and most enticing vending machines that I've ever seen. As he buys the devil's piss, I doubt anyone calls it that, a strange woman appears beside him. Not allowing him to scamper off, she reveals that she knows he can't sleep, and that she can help with that. Taking Ko back to her place, he can't help but consider the obvious, but he pushes those thoughts to the side and continues to follow her, with those thoughts very quickly returning when he sees her room with a single floor bed. I don't actually know what that thing is called. And with her also removing her clothes, revealing her spellbinding body. Wow. Man, they really went all out with the animation for this character. In fact, the animation on a whole is incredible in this series, which really shocked me considering that this is Leiden Films that we're talking about. They're basically the modern day JC staff. They can produce good quality anime, but they're extremely inconsistent, with some of their anime not living up to expectations, at least based on what I've seen. And they are also the same studio that produced the monstrosity that was CGI Berserk, though they weren't the studio that actually animated it despite my initial beliefs. But just that connection alone is enough to leave a poor taste in my mouth. But credit where credit is due. The animation is fantastic in this anime. Sometimes it's downright cinema. And this is by far the best looking show that I've seen from this studio. Anyway, I forgot we were talking about the first episode, so where were we? Oh yeah, they're lying next to each other on this futon. I've since learned that's what it's called since I'm rewatching the first episode, but I'm not changing the script for this video because I think calling it a floor bed is funny. As she whispers sweet nothings into his ear to help him drift off to sleep, Ko questions why he's even there. And also, why it's actually working. She's clearly insane, yet her presence is soothing him, helping him to relax. And yet insomnia is still a bitch, and he still can't sleep. So to avoid the awkwardness of the situation, he fakes it, and pretends to doze off. Believing him to be asleep, the woman reveals her true colours, creeping towards him with what can only be described as immense lust. She bares her fangs and bites into his neck. Surprise! She's a vampire, which you already assumed because of the video title and what I said about the director earlier. Lapping up his blood with much enthusiasm, she stops when she comes to a sudden realization. This boy is some premium stuff. He tastes good after a good suck. Arising from his fake slumber, Ko obviously has some questions, with the main one being, what the fuck? With blood still around her lips, she tries to blame it on a mosquito, which obviously does not work. Understanding the situation at hand, Ko freaks out, believing that he too is now a vampire. But cold water is quickly poured on that idea. He's still human, but you see, there's another requirement to turning into a vampire aside from having your blood drunk. You also need to be in love with that vampire. And for some reason, mention this makes Nanaka Sanazana. Wait, that's her name? Nanaka Sanazana? What are we in Origeru? Is she pining for Hachiman's heart? Well, at least it's not as bad as this guy. Nanana Najakoop. I think Cooper was drunk when he named this character. Well, either way, Nazuna can't help but blush when talking about romance. She loves making lots of dirty jokes and being as lewd and sexual as humanly, I mean vampirally, as possible. But you so much as mention romance around her, even just talking about a little smooch, and she will fold instantly. She's the textbook definition of a glass cannon. After a little chat where we get to learn a bit about both of them, as well as some introspection from Ko, he proudly declares his intentions. He'll become a vampire, and Nazuna will be the one to turn him. But wait, doesn't that mean that's right? He'll fall in love with Nazuna and become a vampire. Just one problem. This guy, for some reason, just cannot fall in love with anyone. He doesn't understand love, has never experienced it, and doesn't know how to respond to it. So will this guy achieve his goal and become a vampire, or will he return to his life of boredom? Find out all that and more in Call of the Night. Call of the Night clicked with me far more than I anticipated it would, and I think it's because it dealt with mental health surprisingly well, especially when it came to its protagonist. I could feel myself relating to these characters as they would occasionally phrase things in ways that made me go, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. They would often put into words thoughts and feelings that I have had, which I didn't expect from this show. And I also completely understood the characters using the night to unwind. I do something similar in my own life, just in my case from the comfort of my own home. I stay up a little later to allow the stress of the day to leave me. It's truthfully when I'm most comfortable, because there's nothing that I can feasibly do at this time. Like when I'm on an airplane, or a bus, or a train. There are no expectations of me at this time. I can truly sit back and loosen up. And that is what this show is so good at representing. That feeling. Honestly, I relate so much to the characters that part of me even debated whether it'd actually be a good thing being a vampire, since it was initially depicted as this very idealistic scenario. But as the season progresses, the world opens up a lot more and we meet new people. And we learn that there are negatives to the vampire world that hadn't previously been showcased, with even the characters questioning what they want. Speaking of which, I really enjoyed all the side characters that trickled into this show. In fact, they really strengthened the series and helped stave off the potential of the premise becoming stale. They all have their own personalities and quirks, and I always enjoyed watching as the characters would bump into each other on certain nights, with them being further developed and their ideals challenging Co's own thoughts and perceptions on certain situations. Call the Night is surprisingly the show that I needed right now, and it may just be that for you too. It's a nice chill anime, all about the vibes, with a dash of lewdness and a hint of sexual tension to spice things up. I really enjoyed this. It may currently only be one season, but the second has been confirmed to arrive at some point in the future. Interestingly, season 2 seems like it'll be slightly different to season 1, as season 1 was very episodic, whereas season 2 looks like it'll be adapting a longer arc from the manga. I wonder whether the anime will still hit the same for me. Fingers crossed it does, though I doubt it will disappoint considering the score for the manga on my anime list. If you didn't know, the manga is actually finished, so that's an extremely respectable score for it to end up with. Call the Night had everything going against it. Its premise and the expectations that would create, a studio with a very weak track record, and even the mangaka who made it, since this is Kotoyama's second work, with his first being the Goshikoshi, which didn't really set the world ablaze. And yet, despite all this show overcame the odds. It is great, greater than I expected, and I assure you, greater than you would initially think too. I'm not saying it's going to be your new favourite anime, but I am saying that you'll likely enjoy this. It scratched an itch for me that I didn't even know I had. But that is only what I think of this series. How about you? Do you like Call the Night? Have you seen it? What do you think about this show? Let me know in the comments below, and whilst you're down there, do consider giving this video a like. It really helps both me and the video out. And if you're feeling especially generous, then do consider subscribing. I'd love to have you become a regular viewer. But until next time, I've been Liam Nidus. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Bye bye!